This video is for this guy that asked me a question a while ago, and I kind of like read it, but I was busy in the middle of stuff, and now I'm back to it. And it was a good question. He wanted to know, because he wants to go into promoting, and wanted to ask me, like, how would he go about doing that? And I responded back to his question, but I decided to give him a video example of what they're not going to tell you. When you're promoting, what do you want to do basically is to see what your ROI, return on investment, is going to be. That's what's really entertaining to you. More than anything in the world, you want to know your return on your investment. And the only way you can know that is knowing your product, aka the fighter. And first things first, you have to have a fighter that is going to win, that has the ability to know how to win. It's just like a horse race. It's just like anything else, dog race. You want to make sure you have a live dog in the ring that has the capability of winning fights. Okay? Judging by his opponents, looking at the percentages. Okay? You want to know what percentages of the chance that your fighter has of winning the fight, and also winning impressively. Okay, there's a lot of variables that go along in it that you didn't ask in your questions, because there's so many lines. You know, like what denomination of race this guy's in, what's the demographic of where you're going to market him as far as his race, how you want to market him. Is he an Olympic fighter? He come from poverty? Did his mom, like beat him as a child? What's his background story? You have to figure out all of these elements. But most importantly, you have to remember your fighter has to know how to win fights. He has to be worth it. And if he isn't worth it, but you know you can market him, you have to first develop him in his origin of region. He has to have a following. The same thing that applies to being a manager of a band or a group is the same thing that would apply here. Anybody that's starting out to be a rapper or something and wanna amass to anything, you look at the rappers that started themselves out. The way they started out was in their own origin. People knew them in their own area. Then they became big somewhere else, and they bragged or they rapped about things that happened where people knew them. So people who related to them got the word out. It spread from there. So you want to find a lot of people to know this guy or follow him because they relate to him, because he's from their hometown and they gravitate to him. So you want to market that, and it takes a while. If you want to be a promoter in boxing, it's not like you're going to be Don King in 2 years. The marketing game has changed because of social media, that a lot of people getting a lot of different exposure without having to go through the usual techniques, but it all goes back to the substance of what I just told you. It's the actual event. But yes, you can market yourself on social media. That does help. Now, let's move forward for an example. Don King, he's done this. Aram has done it. But King was a little bit more successful of developing his talent using big name celebrities and stars. Felix Trinidad was developed through Don King's biggest fighter at the time, when Mike Tyson went to jail, was Julio Cesar Chavez. He was making Chavez into this big star who putting him on these pay-per-view cards, and he was having Chavez fight these guys, but he was also developing another fighter named Felix Trinidad that fought on his undercards. And while you were watching Chavez and waiting for that Chavez fight, you got to see Felix Trinidad on these cards. And the fights he was having were electrifying. And you got to see him and didn't really pay attention that you watched almost all Felix Trinidad fights coming up, where some on TV, but on those big pay-per-views with Chavez, you're going to see Trinidad. And Trinidad didn't forget that. You know, he thanked Julio Cesar Chavez, and they have a great deal of respect for one another because of that fact. That when Chavez's career went down, Trinidad soared. You know, he was able to stand out on his own, and he was ready. But the people already knew who he was. Most of the boxing fans, and that's why the De La Hoya fight meant so much. He proven himself to be the guy at 147. Plus, he had the exposure of people saying, yeah, I remember seeing this guy. Now, the same thing happened with Muhammad Ali, Larry Holmes. Holmes used to be on the undercards of Muhammad Ali fights. You know, this has been done countless times before. We've seen fights when they wanted to match people up, how they do cross promotions with one another, where Sugar Ray Leonard and Thomas Hearns, that's how Arum would normally do it, do a double card and have one fighter here and he's going to have them match up against each other. He likes to promote that way, but also develop his younger talent in the earlier parts of the bouts. But he also liked the events to be two guys that may fight each other down the road. That's the way Arum liked to promote. He likes to have this guy win and this guy fight under him, and it's making it juicy. We're going to do it again. Put them up there again. 1-2. And then eventually these two warriors are going to collide and make one big pay-per-view fight. You know, that's the way he likes to build it up. And at the same time, you're watching the development of these other younger fighters. But most of those fighters were mismatched, where I felt King cards were more competitive. You have way more competitive drama and style matchup for exciting fights if you got a King card. And you got more fights. So it was two different kind of styles of promoting, but it ended up being the same thing because King started putting together tournaments and saying, you know, we just gonna have a tournament and just let everybody fight it out, and so we can have one legitimate champion in these divisions. You see, and now people don't want to do that because if you're a smaller promoter, this really hurts you if your fighter gets in these tournaments if you feel that he can't win these tournaments. It can go good and it can go bad for him. And that's basically all I got to say about that. You know, I miss the old days when they were real tournaments instead of two people fighting and they trying to call it a tournament. This is a tournament, you fighting on the same day. You know, that's the way it's supposed to be. And you know, he got to fight here and then this guy gonna fight on that day, then it's a tournament. No, it's not fair.